Hello and welcome to The Homemade Songwriter. My name is Austin, and in today's video I'm going to give you a list of 5 albums to listen to that inspire me to write and might get you inspired too. Every now and then when we as writers encounter writer's block, it can be hard to get out of that creative rut, and even if we have good ideas for songs or feel the desire to write, we can't seem to break out of the mental block that keeps us from sitting down and actually doing it. We share a lot of practical tips on how to break this habit, and I highly recommend you check out some of our other videos for ideas on how to do that, as well as download our list of 30 free songwriting prompts to help get you writing, which you'll find the link for in the description below. But sometimes the best way to get you re-excited about the writing process is just listening to music created by people who are really good at songwriting. I often find myself going down a train of thought while listening to music I love that leads to new ideas or stories, and that has led to writing a couple of my favorite songs. The following is a list of some albums that I have absolutely worn out and that I think exemplify exceptional songwriting and that might help you get inspired as well. Album number 1, From A Room, Volume 2 by Chris Stapleton. I remember the first time I heard Chris Stapleton on the radio because when Traveler came on the speakers, I thought for sure it had been produced in the 80s. It just had such a classic sound. He followed up that slam dunk album with From A Room Volume 1, which has some great tunes. But when he released Volume 2, I practically busted out my car stereo from listening to some of the tracks on this album. This is the album that gave us Millionaire and Friendship, but if that's not enough to get you excited, check out a lesser known gem, Scarecrow in the Garden. Ethereal, sad, narrative-driven, and super original, it's a great example that shows not all country music sounds the same, and it is possible to tell a unique non-love story in a poetic and catchy way. Then, once you've taken a deep dive on that track, crank up Midnight Train to Memphis and cruise down the highway to celebrate. Because that song not only rocks, but it revives the genre of doing hard times songs that was popularized by Mr. Johnny Cash himself. Album number 2, Pageant Material by Kacey Musgraves. Kacey is an artist that comes up on a lot of songwriting radars, and with good reason. But while her most recent Grammy-winning mega smash release, Golden Hour, is the one that seems to get everyone talking, and her album Same Trailer Different Park landed her solidly on the scene with Merry-Go-Round and Follow Your Arrow, I will admit that I'm not nearly as much of a fan of those two as I am of her album Pageant Material. What I love about this album is that it's unapologetically cheeky while still being clever and catchy. You have the upbeat, Western-inspired, and silly track High Time to kick it off, autobiographical tunes like Dime Store Cowgirl and Good Old Boys Club, and even a cameo from the legendary Willie Nelson in her cover of Are You Sure to cap things off. But I'll tell you the tracks that really get me going are Late to the Party and Somebody to Love. Late to the Party is a beautiful, simple song about the intimacy and comfort you feel when you find the right person who makes you feel like the only one who matters, set against the backdrop of getting ready to go out for a party. Oh, who needs confetti? We're already falling into the groove. Love that line. And who needs a crowd when you're happy at a party for two? The world can wait, because I'm never late to the party when I'm late to the party with you. Melodically, this song is just gorgeous and haunting, but somehow remains sweet. And it's lyrically simple, but very tight. Meanwhile, Somebody to Love is an uncomfortably accurate and honest song talking about the plight of being flawed human beings. Just trying to do our best and wanting to find somebody to love, finding identity in our relationships, and failing to measure up to our own expectations. The mix almost sounds like a live recording, and it has this droning electric fiddle sound throughout that gives it almost a hymn feel until the chorus drops. This, in my opinion, is Kacey Musgraves at her strongest, taking and turning a phrase in a way that seems like it would be easy but is in fact really difficult. If you're having writer's block, give it a spin. You will not regret it. Album number 3, Magic by Ben Rector. Anyone who knows me personally knows that Ben Rector is my boy. I've seen him play shows live 9 times now, starting all the way back in 2010, and I even sold merch for him at one of his appearances in Austin. You may have become familiar with him through his first mainstream success in the track Brand New, or perhaps through Lady A, formerly Lady Antebellum's cover of his song She Is. But his first album, Into the Morning, remains one of my favorites, featuring songs like When a Heart Breaks and The Beat. I really thought he'd plateaued, and I'll be honest, I just wasn't as much of a fan of Brand New or his new album previous to that one, The Walking In Between. But then he released Magic, and my mind was blown. I'm not even sure where to start on this album because I commonly listen to it start to finish and then start it over. Can't decide what to listen to? Magic. Feeling nostalgic or homesick? Magic. Road tripping music? Magic. This aptly named album is enchanting and endearing and heavily influenced by an 80s pop style and on a mission to remind us all of what it was like to be kids and recapture some of that magic that gave us hope and joy way back then. In particular, I absolutely love the tracks Kids and Old Friends for scratching that nostalgia itch, but where this album truly shines, in my opinion, is in the quieter tracks, such as the first and the last of the album, Extraordinary Magic and Love Like This. Vaguely Randy Newman-esque piano-driven songs that have a deceptively simple mix that masks a refreshingly complex chord progression and a dynamic string parts cradling the vocal melody bring these two tracks to life and nicely bookend this total work of art. From start to finish, the writing is, in my opinion, inspired, relatable, and encouraging. That as writers, we don't all have to follow a formula. You can write a song about love just as easily as you can write a song about boxes of unrequested first CDs taking up space in your home office. If I'm feeling uninspired or just want to dance around risky business style, this is the album I queue up, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. Album number 3, The Bird and the Rifle by Lori McKenna. You may not have heard of Lori McKenna, but you have undoubtedly heard of some of the artists that she has written for, unless you've just been living under a rock for the last 20 years.
Hey, SpongeBob! You're going the wrong way!
Artists such as Lady Gaga, Little Big Town, Carrie Underwood, Miranda Lambert. She even won a Grammy for writing Humble and Kind for Tim McGraw. In addition to these notable writing credits, she also has her own catalog of albums featuring her almost Stevie Nicks sound and unbelievably clever lyrics. I can't really put my finger on it, but something about the style of her lyrics and her mix just hits me where I live. It makes me feel such strong emotion, specifically her album The Bird and the Rifle. Incredible songs from this album like Old Men, Young Women, and Giving Up on Your Hometown are so poetic and lyrically driven, but delivered in such a classic style that you could be forgiven for thinking they were recorded in the 70s. In my opinion, the crowning jewel of these works is the title song describing a passively abusive relationship through the metaphor of a bird, the wife, and a rifle, the husband. The latter of whom is ultimately left due to his inability to let the bird stretch her wings and fly. Something many people have experienced, this story is one that warns of the dangers of thinking that just because you love someone, they belong to you, and how our passions can be quietly snuffed out if we let someone else decide when and if we get to explore them, or how we can lose the ones we love if we don't learn to build them up and encourage them to explore their passions instead of controlling them. The rifle loves the bird when she's singing, and he knows every word to every song. And the bird, she loves the rifle because he's dangerous, stubborn, and strong. But something down on the ground won't let her out, it holds her in. He's afraid if she flies, she'll never come home again. Something about the bird in her spreading those wings always brings the rifle out in him. I mean, are you kidding me? How did she write those lyrics? I have written at least 3 songs directly after listening to this album, and that song in particular. And I definitely believe it's worth your time if you need to feel simultaneously awestruck at another person's abilities and sad you've never heard of her before. Lastly, I had to include at least one legendary classic artist on this list, and that artist and album has to be Boston by Boston. This album is incredible from start to finish. Has there ever been a more underrated combination of lyricism and dynamic instrumentals in classic rock? Sure, I love the Eagles as much as anybody, and some of the Beatles' more, rock-driven stuff is obviously pretty genre-defining, but I maintain that Boston has one of the most iconic albums of the 70s, and that More Than a Feeling contains the best classic guitar solo of all time in terms of melody and nuance. Fight me. Listen to the friggin' lyrics on that track, too. If you're a music lover, you cannot tell me that you don't relate to getting lost in a song that reminds you of a specific place and time or a person you used to care for deeply but lost. Turned on some music to start my day, lost myself in a familiar song, I closed my eyes and I slipped away. It's more than a feeling when I hear that old song that used to play, and I begin dreaming till I see Marianne walk away. I mean, come on. The mix is so creative on this album and born of the necessity that drives so much great art, not to mention the absolute jam that is Foreplay Long Time or the starry-eyed success story found in the autobiographical Rock and Roll Band. I listened to this album backwards and forwards, and it is a great example of how simplicity is not stupidity and how pairing the right lyrics with the right mix and melody can make your music iconic. Alright, those are my album recommendations. What do you think? What albums do you listen to help you feel inspired to write again? Go give mine a spin if you're feeling stuck in our songwriting rut, and then go download our list of 30 free songwriting prompts to help jumpstart your creativity and get you writing. If you write all 30 songs, you'll have one less new song than the number of Grammys that was awarded to George Solti. That's right, the all-time Grammy record holder is a composer named George Solti with 31 Grammys. Alright, that's it for this one, so keep writing and we'll see you in the next one.